Thomas and friends, making tracks to great destinations.
Dear Christopher, here is your friend Thomas the Tank Engine. He wanted to come out of his station yard and see the world. These stories tell you how he did it. I hope you will like them, because you helped me to make them. Your loving Daddy.
The island also has lots and lots of railway lines. Who's that puffing down the track? It's Thomas! Hello, Thomas! Hello, everybody! Welcome to the island of Sodor. Today, on the island of Sodor, we find out what happens when Percy discovers a track is wobbly. And we find out who will collect the circus from Brendam Docks. But first, Gordon is making some very strange noises. Thomas and Emily have important jobs to do. Thomas needs to take some coal to Brendam Docks, and Emily has to go to Tidmouth Sheds. Emily is puffing to Tidmouth Sheds, but a tree has fallen across the line. Emily has to go back. Thomas is puffing to Brendam Docks, but the track is closed for repair. Thomas has to go back. Thomas and Emily have to use the same track, but they meet in the middle. What can Thomas and Emily do? Thomas is puffing into the siding. Now they can share the track. Emily can get to Tidmouth Sheds, and Thomas can get to Brendam Docks. Sharing the track was a good idea. Well done, Thomas. And well done, Emily. Thomas is puffing through the countryside. He is on his way to Knapford Yard. But Thomas stops puffing. He has run out of coal. Now, what is Thomas going to do? Here comes Edward. I wonder if he can help. Edward asks his fireman to give Thomas some of his coal. Edward is sharing his coal with Thomas. Now they both have some coal. And Thomas can puff all the way to Knapford Yard. Edward is chuffing cheerfully through the countryside. But what's this? Edward has to stop. He has run out of water. But here comes Henry. Henry has lots of water. Henry shares his water with Edward. Now they both have some water, and Edward can finish his journey. Henry is puffing into the yard. He is ready to collect a special delivery. But there are too many freight cars for Henry to pull. Thomas and Edward only have a few freight cars. Henry shares his freight cars with Thomas and Edward. Thomas, Edward, and Henry all share. It makes them happy and gets the job done. At harvest time, the air is filled with the smell of fresh fruit and vegetables. The engines happily deliver their loads to market. But one day, mist and rain swirled down Toby's line. Percy was delivering a load of fresh tomatoes. Suddenly, he felt a big bump. "Bust my bumpers!" Percy cried. "What was that?" The guard put out the warning flags, while Percy's driver inspected the tracks. "The earth's crumbling," he said. "We must tell Sir Topham Hatt," decided Percy. Percy puffed back as fast as he could. "I've got important news! The tracks on Toby's line are wobbly." Huffed Gordon. "Old and wobbly, just like Toby. That's not news. Can't stop to listen to your silly chatter." "Gordon never listens to me," muttered Percy. Next, he spoke to Sir Topham Hatt. "Sir! Sir!" "Not now, Percy. Thomas, you ought to collect the prize bull. He's at the farm on Toby's line." "Yes, sir." "But those tracks are wobbly," cried Percy. "They are safe enough," said Sir Topham Hatt. "Bye, Percy." "Nobody ever listens to me." Thomas was carefully chuffing through the rain. Soon he had collected the farmer's bull and was on his way back. The rain had made the tracks more wobbly than ever. Suddenly, there was a deep rumbling sound. Thomas's driver applied the brakes, but it was too late. "Cinders and ashes!" cried Thomas. "We're stuck!" And they were. Late that night, Thomas still hadn't returned. Percy was worried. "Thomas is in trouble," he said. Gordon and James took no notice. "Worry wheels," huffed Gordon. "Fussy funnel," said James. "Please," Percy asked his driver, "can we find Thomas?" "Right away," said his driver. Percy was nervous, but his lamp shone brightly in the dark. The tracks creaked and wobbled, but Percy pressed on. "Percy!" cried Thomas. Thomas was very happy to see his friend. "I'll have you out of there in no time," said Percy. Percy puffed and pulled and pulled and puffed. And finally, Thomas and his driver were free. "Oh, thank you," said Thomas. "I'm glad to be useful," smiled Percy. It was dawn before the track was cleared. Then Percy and Thomas made their way back home. "Thomas is here," whistled Percy. "Percy saved the day," said Thomas. Agreed the bull. "I'm sorry, Percy," said Sir Topham Hatt. "We must do a better job of listening to you in the future." Percy was pleased. Sir Topham Hatt has sent Percy and Thomas to collect some freight cars. How many freight cars are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 freight cars. How many freight cars should Thomas and Percy each pull? Thomas takes 5 freight cars. That only leaves 1 freight car for Percy. Percy wants to take the same number of freight cars as Thomas. How many freight cars should Percy take? Percy takes 4 freight cars. Now Thomas only has 2 freight cars. They still haven't got the same number of freight cars. How many freight cars should they each take? Thomas takes 3 freight cars. How many does Percy have? 1, 2, 3 freight cars. The same number as Thomas. They have 3 freight cars each. Well done, Percy and Thomas.